Welcome to a new Draw My Life video.
If we take a look at the new murders that have been born in the big screen during the last years, without a doubt the most fascinating one among people is John Kramer, the protagonist of the horror saga Saw. Today we'll continue with our special terror program. Let's get to know a bit more about his macabre story. Watch out for spoilers! His strength comes not only from the number of victims who had fallen in his traps, more than 50, but more likely from the wit and sadism present in his murders. Jigsaw is not a regular killer with a bladed weapon or a gun. He is an engineer of crime. And this is, precisely, the profession John Kramer had before turning into a maniac killer. His past is told mainly through the second and fourth installments of the saga, though unfortunately we don't know anything about his childhood or teenage years. John was a civil engineer, with a successful career in the restoration of old buildings. He was happily married to Jigsaw, a psychologist, younger than him, whom he helped in the private disintoxication clinic she ran and that she herself had founded. With her patients, they used a self-help therapy transmitted through the slogan of the company, "Cherish your life." This quote will be of a great importance in Jigsaw's genesis as a killer. John Kramer's life seemed perfect until suddenly everything was turned upside down and he suffered several blows that sunk him forever. The first one was losing the kid they were expecting, who they were gonna call Gideon. Jill was pregnant when one night while she was locked in the clinic, she was deceived by one of her patients, Cecil Adams, so she could go in and steal drugs. While escaping, Cecil hit Jill with a door, causing an internal bleeding and the loss of the baby. Not long after, in a routine checkup, John was diagnosed with colon cancer, which comes from a tumor in the frontal lobe of his brain. The tumor is inoperable and condemns him to die soon. However, he hangs on to his last hope and tries to sign up for a new experimental treatment that could save his life. The final blow came when his insurance company refused to pay for the treatment and John was left without any hope. Depressed, he decided to put an end to his life and he jumped off a cliff with his car. Surprisingly, he survived, but severely injured with a metal bar through his abdomen. In that moment, John has a revelation and finds out how much he cherishes his life. He gathers the courage to get the bar out of his body and recover to perform his work. He dedicates the time he has left to test human nature and its survival instinct. Jigsaw doesn't consider himself a killer. He doesn't kill directly. He puts his victims in a limited situation where they have to choose between giving up or fighting to survive. At a high cost, of course, including extreme torture from self-harm to ending with others' lives. But it's always them making the choice. Jigsaw doesn't enjoy his victims suffering. He makes them go through it so they can change the course of their crooked lives. The chosen ones are usually people who are not happy or waste their existence in that of others. Jigsaw comes to remind them they have to be grateful for the gift of being alive. And if they don't make it through the test, it means they didn't deserve that gift. Jigsaw straps are mechanic gadgets or physical puzzles that seem to be inspired by sadistic instruments of torture from the past. In order to build them, he uses second-hand or rotten materials, especially rusty metal pieces, and sometimes he adds countdown mechanisms. However, they are always a symbolic representation of the defects or sins of the victims. Jigsaw explains the rules of the game to his victims and how they can escape through video or audio recordings. But he doesn't show his face directly. Instead, he usually hides behind two well-known symbols for those who follow the saga. One is Billy, a puppet John built back in the day for his future son, Gideon. After his death, Jigsaw decided to give it a more macabre appearance and use it in his games to communicate with his victims. It has appeared through video recordings and also physically, riding his own little tricycle. The other one is the pig mask Jigsaw and his disciples used to hide their faces when kidnapping their victims. It's a rubber mask covered with a wig and represents a realistic image of the head of the animal. Its symbology comes from the pig in the Chinese calendar, the year when John's son was supposed to be born, and the year his crimes started to take place. Super spoiler now. As it was expected, Jigsaw ends up dying in the third part of the saga, though not because of his terminal illness, but murdered by one of his victims. However, as usual, his wit is ahead of the unexpected events, and he manages to have his legacy of tests continue through several disciples, during the 8 movies the saga has had up to now. Recently, we have enjoyed the comeback of the saga to the big screen after 7 years with no new sequels. It seems like Jigsaw's legacy is going a long way, surprising us with new and twisted mortal games.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, and if you want to see more Draw My Life videos, subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode!